Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Email me directly for pricing, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. First teased in 2010 and released the following year, this is the Zenith Captain Winsor Annual Calendar Chronograph, and it is that, an El Primero automatic high-beat chronograph with an annual calendar system designed by Ludwig Axeln. This is one of the best watches you can buy at any price, and in rose gold, you're looking at its richest variant. So the watch is 42 millimeters in diameter, 14 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 50 millimeters with a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. We'll throw it on my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, and it wears well. Now, it is broad across the wrist, but you can see that it's reasonably slim, maybe not the tightest of dress sleeves, but a jacket cuff will slide up over it easily. I recommend it for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference. You can see it's pushing out to the edge of my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, but I'm not at the limit, not yet. Taking a quick look at the hardware and the software, it's all upscale stuff. Large rectangular scale alligator leather, matte finish, monotone stitch. We actually have a broad folded edge here, and as you can see, it is a very dark brown. On the bottom, it's actually a rubber inlay. This is something Zenith does to make the strap last longer. It also feels better against the wrist, and it separates the moisture, sweat, heat, grit of the wrist from the leather. So again, the leather's not going to wear down because you sweat all over it. Now you can see it's uncrimped and it's ungouged. This is a brand new Zenith factory strap. The legacy of Terry Nataf: solid lugs without holes and more substantial full deployant clasps, and that's exactly what we have right here. This is a 2000s era Zenith clasp that would have been continued into the early 2010s on Zenith models, and it's just meatier than the clasps that are sold today. It feels like it has more gold in it, and everything is of a thicker gauge. I really like this, both the look and the feel, and of course, being a deployant clasp, it will help guard against accidentally dropping your watch. There's a lovely teardrop profile to the buckle, and you can see that this is not the Chronomaster case. It's similar to the current Chronomaster case, but not identical. The lugs are a little bit thinner. They are more squared off and vertical rather than downturned and squared off. You can see we do have the transitional bevel here, but it's thinner, and they're satinated on their top. The mid case is handsome, and as you wind through the light from different angles, you can see how the light dances across. It's fairly complex surfacing. You can also see that the bezel has been sunken below the hoods of the lugs. You see how the bezel is actually a little bit lower? That allows the lugs to have a nice, beautiful, full form without forcing the watch to be unduly thick, as it would have been had the bezel been placed on top of the lugs rather than sunk below. The bezel has a vertical portion and then a shallow domed portion, so it's a minimalist bezel. You can see we have vintage-inspired extended lozenge-style chronograph pushers, a simple Zenith star on a thin, sharply knurled crown, and it is an annual calendar. You know this because it says so. We have outboard a chapter ring for reading your seconds and fractions of seconds, and your minutes. Of course, we have applique hour markers, which are frosted at their center and polished on their faceted edges, which I love. You have frosted centers for the Dauphine-style hands and polished flanks on those hands, and then a blued Lancet-style counterweighted chronograph seconds hand. Note that the chronograph minutes actually record up to 60, a rare feature that I wish more chronographs had. The watch does not have a chronograph hour register, but you get something in return for it, which is an annual calendar. So we have a quick set system that allows me to, well, it's a Zenith El Primero, so I should remember the quick set is in the outermost position. Things work a little bit differently with the El Primero. And then you can see that the quick set for the date drives the month. Now, in the intermediate position, you affect the hands. And the way you actually set the day is that you back through midnight, back and forth, seesawing and adjusting, sort of ratcheting the day. That's how that works. So if I wanted to adjust the day, I would have to turn through the 24 hours of the day, get to midnight, and then seesaw back and forth. Ludwig Axeln achieved this calendar with just 9 pieces, and it's wheel-based. If you're not familiar with the name, he was the genius behind the calendar and celestial complications at Ulysse Nardin during the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and today he operates his own independent brand with his son out of Lucerne, Ox und Junior, and he created this calendar system for the MIH watch adapted it for Zenith, and then ultimately carried it over to his brand Ox und Junior. So this is a well-traveled and celebrated high horology movement by one of the great calendar complication specialists of the modern era. Flip it over, you can see 50 meters water resistant. This is a Zenith El Primero base with all the legacy and heritage of the first integrated automatic high-beat chronograph dating back to 1969. Automatic winding, bidirectional action, 50-hour power reserve, 36,000 vibrations per hour or 10 beats per second, pivots on 39 joules rather than the standard El Primero 31. And as you can see, we have a column wheel right here for crisp actuation and feel, and then a lateral clutch, which is an old school way of making a chronograph, but it's tougher to pull off and tune than a vertical clutch, which is why I prefer it. At Patek Philippe, for example, the higher level watchmakers work on lateral clutches like you see here, and the more expensive watches have lateral clutches. Why? Because they're tougher to work with, they're more traditional, and they're more beautiful. You can see everything. It's not covered by winding bridges. That's the beauty, quite literally, of the El Primero. And again, it beats away at 36,000 vibrations per hour. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.